Chapter 5: The Return. In the end, none of the 11 youths passed the test. There was one young girl who made it as far as Wang Lin. On that day, all of the youths that failed the test were sent back to the bottom of the mountain. The Hingyu sect disciples took them home one by one. The one that came to take Wang Lin home was the same youth that had picked him up. Behind him was Wang Zhua and Wang Hao. The youth clasped his hands and said, "Brother Wang Zhua, congratulations on becoming Uncle Master's disciple. You have a bright future ahead of you." Wang Zhua's face showed an arrogant expression. He proudly said, "It is only natural. Master said that after I have finished taking care of the mundane affairs at home, he will teach me cultivator techniques after I return." Wang Hao raised his head and added on the side, "I have always looked down on your arrogant demeanor. So what if you have a master? I will be able to learn how to produce immortal pills." Wang Zhua gave Wang Hao a hard stare, then he shifted his gaze to Wang Lin, who silently stood there. He smiled and said, "Tai Zhu, how was it? I told you before that you didn't have the ability, but both you and your father wouldn't believe it. Now we know the result." Tai Zhu raised his head, glanced slightly at Wang Zhua, and said, "Sir, my parents are waiting for me at home. Please take me back as soon as possible." Wang Zhua saw Wang Lin dare to ignore him and sneered, "Little bumpkin, you are better off becoming a carpenter in a little village for the rest of your life, like your father." The immortal youth let out a faint smile as he looked at the 3 youths in front of him, but didn't say a single word. He waved his sleeves and brought the 3 along as they disappeared from the Hingyu sect mountain. Comparing this flight to last one, Wang Lin's mood was like heaven and earth. Before, he was full of hope, but now, he was full of despair. A little while later, the Wang clan's house came into view. Wang Lin opened his eyes. He could see from afar the clan house that was lit up in celebration with a lively atmosphere. There were far more banquet tables than when his father had organized the feast at the village. They covered almost the whole yard. All the Wang family members were there. Even those who were away buying lumber had come back. The celebration was in full swing, full of drinking and chatter. The lead of the banquet was Wang Tianshui's older brother, Wang Tianshui, and Wang Tianshui's 3rd brother. All the relatives surrounded the 3 of them to give them their congratulation. The scene was very festive. Their eyes were filled with envy, but their mouths were full of flattery. Especially towards Wang Lin's father, who couldn't help but remember the sadness from his past. Wang Lin's 6th uncle exclaimed, "Second brother, this time your son will be selected for sure. After this you don't have to be a carpenter anymore. Anyone who sees you will have no choice but to call you elder." Wang Tianshui's 5th uncle said, "Lao Er, back in the days I already knew your life wouldn't be normal. You devoted your life to Tai Zhu. Now that he is going to be an immortal, you as his father must be extraordinary. Second brother, this time both your kid Tai Zhu and my son will be selected. Us brothers haven't met each other in 10 years. This time, we must have a drink together, no matter what, said Wang Hao's father, as he brought over glasses of wine. He was also Wang Tianshui's 3rd brother. Tai Zhu's father looked at all the relatives that used to look down on him. All the sorrow from his past was swept away. However, he couldn't help but feel a giant rock weighing down his heart. Tai Zhu, you must be selected. Second sister-in-law, this time your marriage to second brother has brought you good fortune. Having Tai Zhu as your child, who in the neighboring area won't know you. Second sister-in-law, your kid Tai Zhu has more ability than my child. Ever since Tai Zhu was little, he has been very smart. Tai Zhu's mother, even though we are of the same family, there are many consanguine relatives who have married nowadays. My daughter is unmarried, and is about the same age as Tai Zhu. Tai Zhu is handsome and I like him. Why don't we tie the knot between our families? Like Tai Zhu's father, His mother was surrounded by a group of female relatives who were enthusiastically chattering beside her. Wang Zhao's father held an indifferent look the whole time. He secretly desired for the immortal to come and deliver the news that Tai Shu had not been selected, so he could see his second brother's reaction to it. As he thought of this, he let out a laugh and toasted the relative next to him that was praising his child. The scene was bustling and full of spirit. At that moment, a sword of light appeared and landed in the courtyard. 4 people came with it. The area immediately quieted down. No member of the Wang family dared to say a word. The Hingyu sect disciple swept across the area and secretly sighed. He remembered when he was selected as a Hingyu sect disciple. His hometown was celebrating like this as well. He suddenly gave Wang Lin a look of pity. He knew that the thing that this youth was about to experience wasn't something a youth could handle. He has a ruthless path ahead of him. The disciple shook his head and left in a sword of light. Immortal practitioners can have any earthly desires. Take care of what you need to. I'll come pick you up in 3 days. His voice echoed from the distance. When Wang Zhuo's father saw the immortal leave, he quickly rushed up to his son and asked, "Did immortal Hui Bing take you as his disciple?" Wang Zhuo said, with a face full of pride and arrogance, "Naturally. Master has said that in 10 years I'll be able to become the head of Hengyu sect disciples." Wang Zhuo's father was overjoyed. He patted his son heavily on the shoulders and laughed. "Good, Wang Zhuo, you will be an immortal in the future. Our Wang family will have an immortal. Wang Hao's father's face also had an anxious expression while staring at Wang Hao. When he was about to ask, Wang Hao let out a sigh and said, "Dad, you don't have to ask. Your son is already a Hingyu sect disciple." Wang Hao's father was ecstatic. He picked up his cup and fiercely drank. Wang Zhuo had a disgusted look on his face. He said contemptuously, "Third uncle, you gave birth to a good son. He has lost the Wang family a lot of face." In front of everyone he flattered the immortal, and then, only relying on a bribe was he able to become a helper. Wang Hao raised his brow and said, "I'm happy, so what? In the future, let us see who has stronger cultivator techniques, then we will see who has lost the family face." Tai Zhu's father saw the depressed expression his son wore, causing his body to shudder. He had an ominous feeling. "Tai Zhu, what about you?" Tai Zhu's mother asked, full of expectation.